Hello! This isn't anything to do with the refugee crisis, this is just a quick video to give you some news. Now, most of you will know my best mate Matty McVarish, and he walked 10,000 miles around Europe on foot to try and change the world for child and adult victims of child sexual abuse. And something happened today, and we're going to get him to tell us about it. Matthew, in you come. Let's hear from Matthew! Yay! Yay, yay, yay. And he's got bleached hair. I should have maybe warned you about that first.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good.
Right, tell us what happened. First of all, tell us what you wanted to happen.
I want to see a world where there's no child being sexually abused, and today Glasgow took a major step towards bringing that in. So yeah.
So what is it exactly that you tabled to the Glasgow City Council?
Well, at the moment I'm working with the Scottish Government. I'm basically kind of recommending these changes. One of the changes that I wanted to see was education for every child that teaches a child how to disclose abuse if it's happened to them. And people automatically get nervous when you talk about that kind of training because they say my kid's too young to talk to them about sexual abuse. And I would say your child isn't too young to be sexually abused. But
is it being done in a way that it's not being specific, it's not taking away a child's innocence?
Absolutely, yeah. It's developmentally appropriate. So it's designed for every different age group. So there's obviously different materials for the young kids than the kind of middle-aged kids, the primary school kids and the high school kids. The Moira Anderson Foundation are developing these hugely sophisticated materials that are brilliant. They're tailored for Scottish kids. They understand the kind of qualities of our culture. So it's not just a general thing coming out of Strasbourg. It will be developed and kind of progressed by Scottish NGOs.
So is this more about teaching kids how to communicate?
Yeah, it's
than
not.
It is.
It doesn't teach a child what sexual abuse is as such. It gives the child an understanding of how to disclose anything that they're frightened of, and that can be applicable to lots and lots of things. You know, so we're creating a world where kids it's part of emotional literacy. Kids are learning the tools and how to communicate difficult problems.
Yeah.
And it doesn't leave the adults hanging. It teaches the adults and the carers in the schools what steps to take if a child does disclose some sort of sexual abuse. Now the thing is, at the moment in Scotland, we can assume that every fifth child born at the moment, every fifth child will be sexually abused at some point.
So that sounds like an incredible figure. That just sounds.
Well, we know it's at least 1 in 5. I mean, everyone knows someone who's been sexually abused. Think about it for a second. You know someone who's been sexually abused. If you walk down Buchanan Street in Glasgow, every fifth person around you is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse.
And where does that figure come from?
Well, that comes from the Council of Europe 1 in 5 campaign. But I mean, it's different. If you get countries like in Iceland, it's 1 in 3. Every third child in Iceland is sexually abused. In Ireland, it's 1 in 4. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not that kids are sexually abused more in these countries. It's just that they've done more sophisticated research.
Okay.
You see, most of the general public have their own opinions of what sexual abuse is, and some people don't consider certain things serious. Do you know what I mean? And if you look at what it says in the law, penetration is considered a lot more serious crime than other forms of sexual abuse like molestation. So, but these quote-unquote lesser forms of abuse have an equal amount of psychological damage for the child as they grow up into adult life. So we need to treat them as serious and as prevent them as adamantly as we do. Obviously, put the children at risk of rape.
So was none of this stuff going on in Scottish schools?
No, it was. There is excellent stuff going on in Scotland, and Glasgow's actually doing a lot better when it comes to child protection than a lot of local districts and even in the UK. But there hasn't been an actual national strategy. It's a bit scattergun. Up until now, it's been a bit kind of postcode lottery, whether your kid gets this kind of training. There's been resistance from certain religious groups about talking about these kind of things, and we're going to be actively working, to work with the churches, work with the heads of the schools and all this kind of stuff, to make sure that it's not about any particular denomination, it's not about any particular community. Children are equally at risk to be sexually abused, no matter who they are, whatever race or creed. And children, it's your human right, your right to information. You have the right to be trained to protect. It's never a child's responsibility to protect themselves from a sex attacker. That's always our responsibility as adults.
Protect kids.
But the cool thing is, if Glasgow, is that my alarm going off? Sorry, maybe. So The main thing is, with the Scottish Government, I said I wanted this campaign across the whole of Scotland. And the kind of tentative plan that we had a representative of the Congress of Regional Authorities of Europe flew from Strasbourg. He walked the last mile at the end of the 10,000 mile walk.
Okay.
And he and I discussed that day, how can we get this campaign to every kid in Scotland? And we said, let's start with one authority, one big authority, get it in, and then once people can see the impact, they can see that every kids who've had this training are 3 times more likely to disclose abuse. That's so important. It's not just important because that means the kids will talk about it. We adults can take action, and we can identify the offender and remove that person from contact with children.
Yeah.
It's not just about that. It's about the child's psychological recovery. You see, the sooner you start to talk about it, the sooner you begin that journey of healing, the more likely you are to regain your life and not end up, with the various kind of outcomes that can happen to people who've been sexually abused in their childhood.
Okay.
Kids who've been sexually abused are twice as likely to smoke. That's true. Kids who've been sexually abused, you're more prone to alcoholism, any sort of eating disorders, all these kind of things, and all of that will be reduced.
Is that because of a child's soft brain, a developmental brain, when something traumatic like that happens?
The neurological research has been going on. It's been getting so sophisticated in the past 2 decades. But if you go back to 1998, we have the ACE study, Adverse Childhood Experience Study, right? Okay. And what it shows is, if you've been sexually abused in your childhood, you're quite likely to die before someone who wasn't sexually abused in childhood. And that's because, it's really simple. If you sexually abuse a child, you interrupt their neurological development, right? Because if you interfere with a child sexually before even puberty, you're doing things to their body that their nervous system hasn't even reached that point yet. So you're interrupting the neurological development. And you can't see that. That's invisible scars that are so deep in their brain. It would take, you need to kind of do psychological recovery work to kind of realign that. But the general public have no idea about this. So what you've done then is you've interrupted the child's development, and you're going to end up with a teenager with probably low self-esteem, with a kind of warped sense of self, compromised psychology. And that compromised psychology inside the teen will start to manifest in negative behaviours. That's why they're more likely to smoke. That's why alcoholism, homelessness, drug addiction, all of these things start to happen because you've compromised the child's sense of themselves in relation to the world. So what would you say to a parent that's nervous about their kids, that they don't want their kid to know about the evils that go on, that are nervous about their kids being taught about this in school? What would you say to them? I would say don't panic, because if you look at any primary 1 class right now in Scotland right now, 20% of those kids will be sexually abused. They will be, right? In some form, they will be sexually abused by someone or sexually assaulted at some point before they're 18. Now, what we're doing is taking steps to stop that. We're educating not just the children. The 1 in 5 campaign educates the entire community, and everyone. So it's going to help the parents. That it takes the hysteria away from it, right? It basically says this is the steps you take. But as a result of what's been going on, it won't be 20% anymore. It will be vastly reduced. Which it's one of the major steps into changing Scotland's future. We're arming our children with the ability to speak up. Some of this work's already been going on, but now we're starting to basically, conform. Not conform. What's the word? We're doing some sort of conglomerate. Is that right? We're basically uniform. Yeah, but we're doing a national strategy instead of just here, there, and because there's been great work going on, but it's not reaching every kid. Now we're moving into, we need to stop this. As a country, we need to stop this. We've got the resources, we've got the political will, we've got advanced, sophisticated materials which are being developed in Scotland by Scottish NGOs, and that's basically with the 1 in 5 European campaign is going to reach hopefully soon, but it's going to change the future and the lives of countless millions of kids in Scotland. So what exactly happened this afternoon? What did you do? Where were you? What happened? I was at the City Chambers in Glasgow. Bailey James Scanlon, he was the councillor who welcomed me back to Scotland when I got to Glasgow. Right. And at the night of the doctorate thing. Right. I asked him and Sadie Doherty, who was our Lord Provost, I met with them in March, and I said, could we bring this in? Could we bring this to Glasgow? And if Glasgow brings it in and rolls it out, then the Scottish Government will start talking about getting it out to everywhere, to Tiree, to Aberdeen, you know what I mean? Every child. And so it was all kind of hanging on today, hoping that it would get, obviously nothing happens without a vote, so Glasgow, all the council were there today to vote on it, and it was just amazing. There was absolutely no opposition to this You know what I mean?
Why would there be? I mean, why even?
Well, there was, like you just described, there was that. And
people are nervous about it.
One of the councillors says, you know, this thing about, you know, this kind of training, talking to kids about this stuff takes away their innocence. It says, but what it's actually doing is arming them to protect from what would be the worst loss of innocence. If we don't do this, then, you know...
But you're managing to do it in a way that really isn't taking away their innocence, it's just giving them the tools to be able to communicate.
Yeah. I mean, I heard something recently, and I hate when people misquote statistics, but I'm about to do it in a horrific fashion. Randa Fox of Not in Our Watch America Foundation was telling me the other day...
Hi Randa.
Hi Randa, we love you. She was saying that something like, you know, 1 in 16 trillion chances of being hit by lightning. You've got 1 in 19,000 chance of being in a car crash, and 1 in 5 chance of being sexually abused.
See, when you put it like that, it's terrifying.
It's quite common. It's more common than we appreciate as a culture, and we actually need to take strategic, real, actual, practical measures.
So it's not just cartoon characters like Jimmy Savile and Jonathan King and all that.
No,
it's actually
the
round about us.
It's not. I mean, it's not a random encounter with a celebrity. It's not stranger danger. It's not somebody hanging out at the school gates. That constitutes less than 5% of the sexual abuse of children that's going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? The vast majority, over 90%, is someone the child knows, who has access to the child and the child loves and trusts. You know, and that's why it's difficult to get the child to disclose as well, because they care about this person. With me, it was my uncle. Do you know what I mean? For a long time, I didn't want him to go to jail for what he did because I cared about him. There's that, you know, that real paradigm.
It's just it's manipulation, isn't it?
Something
they rely on that. They rely on kids.
Yeah.
Being frightened to.
So anyway, it's great. It's really, really great, and it's if you're a parent out there and you've got kids, I mean, and you're worried about how do you talk to your kids about abuse, then don't worry, because this training is going to be coming in. It's going to be coming in dialogue with the parents if anyone's got these apprehensions. And again, it's making Scotland safer for your children. So
if anybody that's watching this has got concerns about anybody, or even if they maybe something happened to them as a kid, or if they're worried about a neighbour's kid or a relative, what can they do?
If you're in Scotland right now and you're concerned about a child in danger, or it's something that happened to you in the past, particularly if the person who sexually abused you is still in contact with children, I would urge you to phone the Moira Anderson Foundation.
Right, we'll put the details up on screen.
Phone the Moira Anderson Foundation. If you want more information on the 1 in 5 campaign, you can go to the Council of Europe's website. Just Google 1 in 5 Council of Europe.
Well, we'll put that up too.
Cool. Yep. So we're really excited, and it's just brilliant to be in a country who, you know what I mean. We have the kind of, there's a real sense in Scotland right now of wanting to deal with stuff, wanting to change stuff, and it's happening. Scotland's moving pretty fast. I mean, I only asked them in March,
and that's it through.
I mean, you would think if you want a major change in kind of you know, in procedure and in legislation, it would take longer than that, but no, it's just.
But they have been really proactive about it then.
Well, today there was an emergency motion on how Glasgow is going to prepare to welcome the refugees.
So for your kind of thing, Nicola Sturgeon's on side with it as well, isn't
100%.
she?
100%. Right, Nicola is. I'm just so pleased for Scotland that right now with her at the helm.
It's good. Now, the hair, Matthew. What?
Well, you know what, like, up until now I've been doing the acting, and I decided, well, the thing is, when you're an actor you can't dye your hair because you have to look like your headshots, but I've just got a job in Bangkok, so I'm not, well, not in Bangkok, it's kind of in Bangkok, so I'm not going to be able to do the acting for a wee while, so I figured I'll just dye my hair.
I once bleached my hair when I was a bit younger than you, and I looked like Pat Butcher.
So thanks for thanks.
So there we go. But that's brilliant, Matthew. What is your job in Bangkok? Very briefly, what are you going to be doing?
Well, the head office in Bangkok. I'm now working with a global organisation who stop sexual exploitation of children. They're in 90 countries, but the office is in Bangkok.
Right. Okay. So you're changing the world.
We're all doing what we can.
You're changing the world. He's modest.
Well done.
Modestly.
Well,
ladies and gentlemen, Matthew McVarish.